Hey guys, I'm recording this a couple days before the spring equinox on March 20th, 2025. I wanted to offer a little more info about this event because it's highly significant. I mentioned in a previous post that during the equinoxes, because the sun is equal light, equal night, equal day, excuse me, that there's the magnetic field of the earth is lowered. And that's because the sun's moving from east to west over the planet in an equal way. Understood as a good time to access, higher levels of consciousness because the sun's light comes through more intensely and the magnetic field is lowered. If you follow some of my work with the sun and Sirius being potentially being a binary star or a central star to our star, and then Sirius also being related to the galactic center, and these are the idea here is that the main sun is the galactic center, and there's other suns that communicate light and information to us, Sirius being one of the final filters. And I share all that just to say the idea that the equinoxes are portals because the magnetic field is lower and we can get more information through. Okay, so regardless of whether or not that's a little bit too woo-woo for you, I want to offer two things in this recording, in this post. One is some information about archaeological sites that have been documented to be aligned with the equinoxes, and also some of them the solstices, and then also a little bit of a astrological high level look at why this particular equinox of 2025, the vernal and spring equinox, for those of us that are in the northern hemisphere, is significant. But let's go ahead and begin here, which is a place where I know most folks can recognize. This is the Great Sphinx and the Pyramid of Giza, and they are known to line up perfectly with the sun on the equinox. And this information comes from the Swiss archaeologist Herbert Reich in the 1960s. He observed that the sun just sort of seems to sink behind the Sphinx's shoulders on the equinox. And in fact, they've come to find out that the 24 pillars that are left in the Sphinx temple are also seemingly aligned with the sun during the equinoxes. And then let's go ahead and move on to I love this site. This is Chichen Itza in southern Mexico, and this is an image of the sun setting in the afternoon on the northern staircase, and you can see that there's a snake's head at the bottom of that staircase. And look at what the shadow of light of the equinox sun does. It gives the impression that there's actually a snake slithering down the pyramid, and folks think this is likely either representing the god Cuculan or Quetzalcoatl coming down to the earth on that day. So this is interesting because we're talking about like what we know about the magnetic field and the solar light coming through. Their solar deity, they have a whole temple made to depict the fact that they believed that this was the case. All right, so let's next just move quickly to Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat, you can see here that the sun is rising over the center of the temple, the peak of the temple in Angkor Wat. And this happens on the spring equinox. And just, this is a 700-year-old city made up of all sorts of canals and temples and shrines, and known to be a very powerful place. Let's keep going now. We're heading to Ireland. This is the Loughcrew Cairn. Actually, this is the Cairn T, one of the I think it's 3 Loughcrew cairns, and this is in County Meath, Ireland. It's also known as the Hills of the Witch. And so there's 4 tomb cemeteries. They're over 5,000 years old. Cairn T, we're showing that on the spring and the fall equinox, the sun's light shines right down the entrance to Cairn T. It illuminates the back stones. All of these cairns have stones, but there's known to be some of the best artwork in the history of Ireland, or at least some archaeologists say that. You can see the right part of that picture shows the sun is lighting up these inscriptions. Keeping on, keeping on. Gotta have our Machu Picchu fix, right? Back to the theme of the sun. The sun was the central worship figure for the Incan people, right? And here you can see on the right that in Machu Picchu is on the left, but the Intihuatana stone is a large rock that archaeologists have come to understand lines up perfectly with the sun on the equinoxes, because that is the point and the only two times of the solar year where there is no shadow that is cast by this stone. And a lot of folks believe that this was used as a solar calendar. Some folks find that a little bit controversial. Let's move next to, this is in Malta. This is the Manjara megalithic temple. And so there's a few megalithic temples in Malta. These are dated about, as we know, about 3,000 or 4,000 BC. But on the spring and autumn equinoxes, there's a really, the sun hits the entrance of the temple and lights up the main axis of the building perfectly. You know, some folks say this is a matter of chance, but other folks say that this is, you know, this is kind of so systematic that it's possible and probable. Okay, so let's head next to North America, to Chaco Canyon, one of my favorite places. Chaco is known to have many places on this sacred site that are aligned with not only the solstices, but the equinoxes as well. Excuse me. What we're looking at here on the right is the sun rising through the doorway of what's known as a great kiva, and that's just a kiva was one of their homes that housed hundreds and hundreds of people, and it shines through the doorway in this to shine to the back of the doorway on the equinox. And then here, this is an interesting place that I actually just most recently came to know. This is the Chanquillo site in Casma Valley in north central Peru. And what we're looking at first here is a solar astronomical building. And then what we're looking at here is also the same site, but this is 13 sort of cube-shaped towers that stretch along this ridge that you can see, and you can see that tracks the annual solar rising and setting, and it tracks it to the solstices and the equinoxes. That I'm going to stop my share and sort of switch gears here and talk about, like, astronomically and astrologically, the spring equinox is what happens when the astrological calendar goes to 0 degrees of Aries. The sun is at 0 degrees of Aries, and 0 degrees of Aries is known as the start of their new year. So this is actually the new year, potentially, for many ancient people. And 2025, I happened to mention, is super duper charged for this particular equinox. First, let's go to the fact that we know, as I mentioned before, that this is sandwiched between the full moon lunar eclipse that we just had back on the 14th, and then the new moon solar eclipse, which is on the 28th. So right here in the middle, we have the 20th, we have the vernal equinox. But when we consider that the way the equinoxes have been celebrated throughout history, as we understand, they were typically celebrated on that day, but they either began or finished to be celebrated with the new moon and with the full moon that shouldered on either side of that. It just so happens that 2025, this equinox it's not just a new moon and a full moon, it's a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. And eclipses are like exponential beyond linear and time space energy. So this equinox has the potential to be exponential beyond linear time and space. Not only that, we have a lot of planets and aspects that are transiting 0 degrees of Aries during early 2025 and through March. And so this is also just saying they're kind of like coming by on a touch point to activate and to get downloads from 0 degrees Aries. Okay, so the two planets that are really pretty active right now and during this most obvious are Venus and Mercury. Venus and Mercury earlier in 2025 went through the 0 degrees Aries point along with the North Node, Venus is the planet of balance and harmony and justice. Mercury is the planet of communication. North Node is where we're headed as a collective, all touching on 0 degrees Aries. It just so happens that after this particular equinox, when the sun is at 0 degrees Aries, right in sync with the solar eclipse, we have Venus and Mercury retrograding back to be at 0 degrees Aries, which is going to be where Mercury is, and Venus is going to be at the anaretic degree of Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. And there with her during the solar eclipse, you can't make this stuff up, is Neptune. And Neptune's going to be another one of those huge transits. We've got all the outer planets changing signs. So Pluto already did its dance, and Neptune's going to start doing its dance to show us the outer planets are the planets of the collective. They are generational planets because their orbits are so big. You don't have transits that, people don't live to be 248 years old. So it's worth noting that this particular equinox is supercharged. And if you have any interest in more info on, the magnetic field of the Earth and that aspect of astrology, let me know. I might be able to do a post on that. Until then, you'll hear from me in a little bit with a post and download about what to expect from the solar eclipse later this month. All right, take care.